yeah, but I'm so stressed out because of all these things. I'm like, yeah, but you're just going through a test. Here's the thing. If you fail the test, what happens? You repeat the grade. Now, if you've been stuck in life for 10 years or you've been stuck financially, it already tells me everything that I need to know about you as a person.
So obviously you've got a wealth of business experience and expertise over many years, and you have a very unique name. And I bet lots of people who don't know who you are asking the question, what is Mojo, Michael Mojo? What does Mojo stand for?
Yeah, so Mojo became a bit of a weird thing for me. The way it all started was I've been in the personal development industry for a long, long time now. I've been coaching people for about 20 years now. And so I was with a friend. So my original business was called Ultimate Achiever, and it was okay. And I was doing a lot of like corporate business work, and I was doing some like public speaking and things like that. And we'd run some smaller events and stuff around the place. But there's a certain type of clientele I enjoy working with. So I love working with small business owners, especially. I love working with driven people. Like my community is called the Driven Mofos, because everyone's driven for more. They want more out of life, really, like driven for better health, driven for better finances, driven for better relationships, better communication, better businesses, the usual things that people are driven towards. I think most people. But I was just getting some more corporate-y type work, and I think that the corporate environment isn't my environment. I'm a coach, not a speaker. So I did some work a couple of weeks ago for a large business organization, and they said, Michael's a speaker, like a public speaker and whatever. And I said, I'm not. I'm a coach. I help people to solve problems and to move forward and to progress and achieve more. It's a different skill set than standing up on stage and giving a motivational pep talk that then people feel good for 24 hours and leave. But anyway, I was doing that in the corporate industry for a bit, and I wasn't really enjoying it because I felt like there wasn't the growth there in people. I like seeing people grow. I like seeing people overcome their problems, overcome their barriers, and keep pushing towards growth. I think that's the greatest gift we have in life, is the ability to grow and overcome our problems. And
definitely,
we solve one problem, we create another problem, and so on. But anyway, I was doing that, and I was feeling a bit lost because it wasn't the people I really enjoyed working with and so on. But I was doing all right financially and whatever. And then one day I woke up. I'd spent all night working on this new website with a couple of other friends of mine. Back in startup days where your mates come around, you sit there and you build a website. Like everyone's enthusiastic and you're all like, in your early 20s. And it's just like you've got this crazy amount of stupid energy that normally gets misplaced. But, that had happened. So we'd pretty much pulled an all-nighter. And then I went to a friend's house to train in the morning. I'd had a couple of hours sleep. And he said, what's been going on? I told him we'd pulled this like late night and we're building the website. And he goes, man, you're like this Mojo dude. I was like, oh, Mojo dude. And I thought about it, and it sat with me for a couple of days. And I was like, Mojo dude. And then I remember just something clicked, and I ran into my wife's office. She had this little office at the time, and I ran into her office and I'm like, I'm the Mojo master. She's like, what do you mean? I was like, I'm the Mojo master. And she goes, I hope I can swear. But she said, what the fuck are you talking about? And I said, I'm the Mojo master. And she's like, I don't know what you mean. Whatever you're saying is, I don't know. And I said, look, we have to rebrand as the Mojo master. So that was sort of our transformation from the Ultimate Achiever, which was our original business, to the Mojo master. And then that business operated under that brand for a period of time. But what I realized was there was a bit of a disconnect. I liked the name, but I didn't really connect with it. And then over time, the branding sort of shifted, and I created Mojo Human Performance Institute because I wanted to have bigger impact and bring in other coaches and have different types of events and build something to scale. My big business mission is to build businesses that help people perform better, both in life and business. And so I knew I needed to leverage more people, and I couldn't build it off my personal brand alone. So I created Mojo Human Performance, and then I realized that if I keep calling myself the Mojo Master, that's going to put limits on our growth. And so I just changed it to Michael Mojo, and it sort of stuck. And now I go places and people are like, Mojo. And so Mojo's like the thing that stuck. Yeah. And even people wouldn't call me the Mojo Master. They just call me Mojo. So that's why I kept the Mojo part. But really, Mojo, when I looked it up, is an African folklore. And in certain tribes, they used to carry around a bag of mojo. And a bag of mojo would keep away bad spirits or bad energy and bring in good energy and good spirits and good luck. And I was like, that's essentially what I do.
That's quite an inspiring story.
Thank you.
It's everything sort of came together naturally, and sounds like it was just a process that evolved over time, and now here you are, really dominating your industry in performance, helping people get the most out of their lives and achieve the highest level.
Yeah.
Which is
something you mentioned was like evolution. I think part of the process of life, which most people mistake, is that we're always evolving. I always say this in my events, like if someone can describe me in 2 years from now as being the same person as I was 2 years ago, tells you a lot about that person. I want people to say, Michael's like this, but what they're describing is who I was, not who I am. Because who I am is an evolution of myself, someone who's consistently growing and learning and adapting. Like I sometimes go to my parents' house for dinner and they'll say, yeah, but you're always angry. I was always angry, right? I'm a redhead. I got expelled from school for fighting. You know, I've had my nose broken. I got stabbed in the head with a bottle. Like I used to be hyper aggressive and that's who I was back then, but it's not who I am. Now I'm pretty calm. So, you know, when I first started the business, I had people, old staff members who left and they're like, Michael's erratic. I was erratic when I first started my business because I didn't know what I was doing. Now I'm really calm. I'm a lot more structured. So I like to hear people describing who I was because
yes,
that's a past tense. It means they're stuck in it, but I've outgrown them. If people keep describing who I was in the past, it tells you that they haven't grown, but I have, because they don't have the ability to adapt to realize that people around them grow as well. So yeah, life's an evolution. Business is an evolution. Everything's always changing. It's always in flux.
It certainly is. And just expanding on the point of evolution, you talk about creating a winning mindset. And my question for you is, what are some of the processes that you help your clients or the people that you speak to when it comes to achievement? Like, how do you help them develop that mindset of no limits, of pushing yourself to new levels and becoming a whole new you?
I mean, it's a very broad question because it depends what the problem is that we're trying to solve, right? Like,
yes,
you know, if someone comes in and they're a business owner and they're stressed out, burnt out, tired, frustrated, they feel stuck, that's going to be different than someone who comes to me with a relationship problem and says, my relationship isn't working. Now, there's some foundation principles that I can go over because I think that strategy always has to be built on principles. And most people make this mistake of trying to build a strategy without understanding the principles of what winning or what working looks like already. You know, like we know the principle of health is we probably need to move X amount of time every day. We probably need to eat fairly healthy. And then what are the principles of what does good eating look like? And so when we research that, we find that there are principles, so like frameworks that we can sort of sit in. Now, the principle of eating vegan to vegetarian to paleo doesn't really matter, providing that the framework is correct. You know, like if we eat more calories than what we burn, we're probably going to put on weight, and it doesn't matter whether we're eating vegan, paleo. So that's a principle. Then from there, we look at strategies and structures, which then can be refined over time. What most people do is they want the strategy without understanding the framework or the principles that they're trying to achieve things under. But if I look at like what are the common principles make someone do well in life, their personal life. Now, if we look at business, like I'm a business owner, if I'm not doing well personally, my business is screwed. Most people don't realize that. In fact, I was just on the call with one of my clients I've been working with now for 5 years. We've grown their business from doing about $1 million a year in revenue. And I think at the moment they're doing about 14 million on average, and their profit margins are wild. Yeah. So their profit margins are good. You know, they're making over 7 figures profit every year. Actually it's well over 7 figures. But anyway, my point is that when I was working with him tonight, I kept coming back to the core fundamental principle is that your external world is a reflection of what's going on internally. Like if you're stressed in your head and you can't control your own stress, the world around you becomes highly stressful. Now, what most people do is they try to solve the external issue without solving the internal issue. And so they keep repeating patterns. So the business owner who's stressed thinks that if they get rid of one shitty staff member and they hire somebody else, that somebody else is going to make the business perform better. And normally it doesn't. It just creates the stress again. And then in 6 months, they fire somebody. And then they just have these cycles that they go through. You know, people get into an intimate relationship and then they end up breaking up, 3-4 years down the track. And then they get back into a relationship and 3-4 years down the track, they break up again, or they go through their second divorce or whatever. What they're not realizing is that every time we look outside of ourselves, we're essentially looking into a mirror of ourselves. And so if we don't learn to look within ourselves in order to solve the external problems that are around us, then we don't actually learn to grow. Now, as business owners, that's one of the key things is like with this guy tonight that I was working with, part of the thing is I'm building his leadership skills now because the business is working well, but his team aren't as effective as what he wants. So my first thing is, let's go back to you. What's going on with you? And now he's like, whoa, I'm just stressed out. I'm frustrated. There's all this chaos. And I'm like, so you're mentally, internally stressed. You're internally chaotic. And now you're projecting that out. And you think that if everything outside of you can be less stressful, then you'll be less stressed on the inside. And he said, well, that's exactly right. And I said, it doesn't work like that. You go deal with your stress and the problems that you're perceiving on the external will seem a lot easier to solve. Versus the other way around is you keep thinking that if I'm in a rush or I can quickly fix all this stuff on the outside, then I'll feel better. That's a really shit way of living in the way that most people live. So coming back to the frameworks, which was the original question, the framework for helping someone to achieve great things in their own life where they enjoy it and they're fulfilled, I have something that I help people build, which is their success map. Their success map is essentially 3 key pillars. The first pillar is understanding what fulfills them. Because if we want to achieve anything in life, we have to understand what type of life do we want to build. Now, I don't want to build a business where I wake up in the morning like most people where they're like, oh man, I got to get up and I got to go to work and I got to do. I don't want that. I want to wake up in the morning and just be like, fuck yeah, let's do this. And I want to wake up next to my wife where I look at her and I'm just like, hell yeah, let's go have some fun today. That's the life that I want. Is like, I want to enjoy my clients. I want to enjoy running a business. I want to enjoy life. Now, does that mean that I always enjoy it? Hell no. There's problems every day. Like being a business owner, I essentially wake up, there's a bunch of problems. I solve problems and then I go to bed and there are more problems. So business owners who can't control their internal, they try to solve all the external problems without realizing that that's our job. Is we essentially wake up and we solve problems and that's called evolution and growth. I might have a staff problem today. I fix the staff problem. Now I've got a cash flow problem. Then I fix the money problem by getting staff more effective. Then all of a sudden I got a taxation problem. And so all the time you're just dealing with these problems. I love that. Like to me, that's like, cool. Now I get to solve the next one. And I keep doing it. My company grows. My team have fun. Amazing. Life's good. But when I work with all these other business owners, they've been trained that the goal is to get rid of problems. And so they surround themselves with problems. They stress out. Then eventually they either melt down and burn out or they run away from them. Go, I've got to go on a holiday. I've got to get away. But they're always trying to escape their own life. And they think that something else outside of themselves is going to solve it. So we want to understand what fulfills you in life. What's the thing that you love to do that you're going to wake up and do? Not the thing you're passionate about, because passion means to suffer. So I don't want to do things that I'm passionate about. I don't give a shit about passion. What I care about is what do I love to do? And love, and you've done some work with DeMartini, haven't you?
Look, I've been to some of his seminars.
Oh, yeah.
And know some of his basic principles. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so he talks about love as being, and so do all the great philosophers. Like some of the books back there are some of the greatest philosophers in history. They talk about the idea of avoiding passion and finding love. Love is a symmetry of both positives and negatives. So I love running a business, but every day there are positives and there are negatives. Every day, the shit hits the fan somewhere. There's always a problem. Staff come to me, oh, this happened and that happened. I'm like, that's cool, we'll fix it. Like, let's work through it all. And I train them and I develop them and I help them. The better that they get and the more effective they get in life, the better the business grows. The more effective my customers are, the more money they make, the more money I make because they keep reinvesting in our products and our services and so on. So as we evolve, if I evolve myself, then I can evolve my team. It's the I, we, and all principle. If I evolve, I can evolve my family and those close to me. If my family and everyone are evolving and I'm evolving, then I can go out and evolve my business and people around me, my community, and so on. But most people make the mistake of trying to change the fucking world and they can't even change their own thoughts, right? It's a stupid principle and it creates a lot of stress and a lot of problems that are unnecessary. So pillar number 1 is fulfillment. What fulfills you? What would you love to do? What challenges would you love to solve every day? What stresses would you take on? What pressures would you take on? Because pressure creates expansion. Stress creates growth. Most of our society want to avoid stress and avoid pressure, and therefore they don't grow and don't expand. Right? It's a fundamental law of physics. Everything in the universe is expanding or contracting. Nothing stays the same. And everything on Earth either grows or dies. Nothing stays the same. So if we're not growing through stress and we're not expanding through pressure, then we're not getting anywhere. So we have to embrace that fundamental principle. And the question is, what stress do I want? What pressure do I want? And let's go after it. The pressure and stress that I love is building people. I love building people to be more, whether that's through business or whether that's through my one-on-one coaching or whether that's through my events and seminars. I just want people to be better. And so that's what I do every day. Is it easy? No, because people are people. People complain, people get stressed, people get frustrated, people they're people, right? Now, I'm pretty lucky because I have a good group of community, but we still get people who slip in who are unappreciative or who expect too much from us and things like that. And it causes problems, but that's part of my job, is to solve those problems. So that's number one. Is the fulfillment pillar is important, because if you're fulfilled, are you more likely to stick at something for a long period of time? You do something well for a long period of time, it creates compounding, right? Whereas the people who want to get rich quick or do shit quick, they're the people who get somewhere quick and then just drop off the face of the planet, and then they go to the next thing and they never really get anywhere. I used to be like that. I'm not anymore. So we need to do something that we're fulfilled in, so we can do it over a long period of time so that we get compounding effect. Also, we want to do something that we love, because every day we're a day closer to death. And I want to know that today my life was worth it, because today I'm one day closer to dying. I don't know when it's going to be, not yet. But what I know is that I'm a day closer. If I died tomorrow, did I enjoy today? And if I didn't enjoy today, and I'm not talking about the usual enjoyment that most idiots, when I say idiots, I mean that in the most fundamental way, which is low-minded. When someone's trapped in an idiotic way of thinking, they think fun is getting drunk, partying, drugs, but they're essentially the 7 deadly sins in Christianity, or the Greeks had the 8 evil thoughts. And what they're saying is, those things there, although they're pleasureful in the moment, they create pain afterwards. And that's why most people live on a pendulum of pleasure and pain, because they chase pleasure, get it, it leads them back to pain. Then when they're in pain and suffering, they want more pleasure. And so they swing in this fucking pendulum of back and forward between the pleasure and pain. But that never gets you to where you want. I don't care about pleasure. I don't care about it. What I care about is I love the growth. I love waking up every day and going, you know what? I changed 5 or 6 people's lives today by just moving them a little bit closer to their goal. I got to inspire my team and we moved forward a little bit. And you know what? I got rewarded because I'm good at that financially, which then means I can go back and reinvest in myself through learning and growth and development, doing things that I love to do, traveling and so on. And then I get to go and invest in my team more. And we keep doing that. And now you're expanding as a business. You're expanding as a family. You're expanding as a community. So we've got to find out what we're fulfilled in doing, or if not, we chase pleasure and pain all the time, which always leads in circles. Hence the 7 deadly sins, or the 8 evil thoughts from the Greeks. And also, a lot of people in the personal development field quote people like Marcus Aurelius. But in Marcus Aurelius's book, he clearly states that we need to avoid the passions. Yet almost everyone in the personal development space talks about finding your passion, doing things that you're passionate about. Whereas the greatest philosophers in history spoke about avoiding the passions, because passions are pleasure. So anyway, that's fulfillment. The second pillar is you need to know your direction, because without direction, you won't have drive. So we want to be driven towards something that's meaningful towards for us, which comes from a long-term mission, documenting our visions. Now, we all have unique visions that pop into our mind and things that we believe we can achieve in our lifetime. I personally have never thought about going to space. I don't think about it. I don't really care. I think about building a massive business where I'm running events and seminars with tens of thousands of people and working with the best people on the planet in all different fields, which I've been able to already do, from Olympic athletes to rich listers and so on. They've been my private clients. So that is a vision that's etched in my mind that I keep working towards and I keep building. You have your own unique visions, and so does everybody else. They need to be documented, because that documentation gives you clarity on your mission. The mission is the path to get there, and then you set goals. Now, goals, most people mess up goals as well, because normally they get excited. And if you get excited about goals, you think that you're more skilled than what you are. When you do that, you set big goals with a small skill set, and then you fail at them, and then you beat the shit out of yourself because you feel like you didn't get what you wanted, and you feel guilty and ashamed. And that's that negative cycle, the negative loop that most people get into. So something that's really important is your goals. And I talk to business owners all the time about this, but also this relates to the general public. When you set goals, any goal or anything that we're doing into the future is essentially we're looking into a crystal ball. Now, if I said to you, I think that you should invest in a certain, let's say I'm going to tell you that I think you should invest all your money into, let's say, abalone farming. Right? Do you know what abalone is?
Sounds interesting.
So abalone, for those who don't know, is like a seashell, right? Is it a mollusk or whatever? But essentially they're an ocean fish that is quite expensive, right? It's not even a fish, but anyway, it's like a shellfish. There's probably marine biologists on here who's going to flip out. But anyway, my point is,
it's good promo.
Yeah, if I told you to do that, you'd probably sit there and go, this guy had a mirror ball. Like if you went to your friends and family, so this guy had a mirror ball and he said he looked into the future and he saw that abalone farming was going to go really well. What would your friends and family think? Right? They'd think that you're a weirdo, right? Because you're listening to this guy. Yeah, who has this magic ball, right? Because we all know the magic person who can see into people's future, and we all know that it's bullshit. Now, when people set goals, we're essentially looking in our own mindset into the future, trying to create predictable patterns. And if we look at our past behaviors and our past way that we utilize our own skill sets and the people around us and our own resources and other people's resources, it should give you some sort of predictable pattern. Now, that predictable pattern should lead us towards the goal. But again, it creates a probability. When people set goals, they're like, I'm going to go carve this thing into stone. I'm going to over-exaggerate my skill set. I'm going to set this big fucking thing that I've like, I have people come to me and they're like, I want to be a millionaire in 12 months. And I'm like, cool, you can do that. Just a quick question though, based on your past experience, how much did you earn in the last 12 months? I earned 60 grand. Okay. Well, maybe they just had a bad year. What happened the year before that? It was 60. Okay. And the year before that? 60. So we've got 3 years of consistent 60K. Now, I'm not saying that you can't go from 60 to a million, because you can. But what I'm saying is the probabilities based on the experience that you've got, the knowledge that you have, the skill sets that you got, the chances of you achieving that is probably in a decimal place with many, many zeros in front of it. Now, is there a chance? Yeah, you might have a 1 in a billion chance. But if you're going to bet your life on that, or you're going to bet your life savings on that, it's probably a pretty shitty goal. What I would rather do is create a better probability. Like if someone walks into the gym and they say, I want to lose 20 kilograms. Perfect. We can do that. But now the question is, what's the time frame? Right? If the person needs to lose 20 kilograms and they need to lose it in 2 weeks because it's their wedding, the only way that that's going to happen is they're going to have to either cut the fat off and have surgery, which means their wedding is going to be really uncomfortable because they're going to be in full-blown recovery from a major surgery, or they're going to have to chop limbs off, or it's completely impossible. So that's a shit goal. So what I'm saying is that people need to treat goals like a probability. And then if you get feedback that your goal setting ability is not good, then you need to use that data and change the way you set goals. So if I want to go from let's say a $1 million business to a $10 million business, but we've been sitting at $1 million for the last 2 to 3 years, going from 1 to 10 to 12-month period is probably highly improbable. It's not saying it's not impossible, but it's highly improbable unless a lot of inputs change. So now what we probably need to do is go back and reassess. Even growing 100% in 12 months is pretty tough. So let's go back and let's figure out how we're going to do this and create a proper fucking game plan instead of pushing ourselves to the point of burnout, exhaustion, anxiety, stress, frustration. What that tells me about that individual mentally and emotionally, and I'll get to the third pillar in a minute, by the way. Sure. What that tells me about that individual is that they love setting them up for failure, because failure and consistently beating themselves up and feeling like shit is actually their motivator and their driver. And so people who beat the crap out of themselves and feel really bad all the time, they will go through a cycle where they self-depreciate, beat themselves up, and then they'll go really, really hard again in order to prove their value to themselves again and in order to prove their worth. And then they'll go really, really hard. They'll overexert themselves. They'll burn out, and then they'll beat the shit out of themselves again so that they can get back into that self-depreciating state, and they just stay in that loop. It's not a way to a great life. You're getting closer to death. Not a great way to live. Not going to enjoy life. You might achieve some things. It's not going to be fun. It's a shitty way of living. So anyway, I know I went off track, but that other pillar, we need vision, mission, and goals, and they got to be set clear. That's pillar number 2, and they have to be done right. Most people do them wrong. Almost every business owner that I work on with their mission, their vision, their values, as a company guide and as their culture guide is wrong. And that's why they're stressed. That's why they're frustrated, not getting results. The final pillar is knowing a whole bunch of psychological principles so that you can fine tune yourself. So there's a whole bunch of different things. Like there are principles that I use day in, day out with clients, and I use them myself. One of them is energy over effort. Most people will work harder and think that hard work is going to be the thing that gets them to the place that they want to get to. That's not true. Warren Buffett, one of the richest people on the planet, he works less than what I do. When at the end of the year, when he does his tax return is $200 million, $200 billion with a B. And, you know, I'm running, a 7-figure plus company. Does he work harder than me? No, I'm grinding my ass out. He just has a better ability to manage himself differently. Now he's in his late 90s, right? So I think he's like 96 or 94 or something. So I'm 40 now. I just turned 40. He's got a lot of extra time. You know, he's got an extra 50 years on top of what I have. And I know my knowledge is compounded. You know, when I was in my 20s, I was like, why aren't I there yet? And then I got into my 30s and I was like, holy shit, the shit that I used to think about when I was 20, like that Michael was a completely different person. Like, I can't even think like that guy anymore because everything compounds. Someone said something really cool. They gave a wicked analogy the other day. And they said, if you put one piece of paper, like if you lift one piece of paper up, it's very light. But if you put a couple of pieces of paper, it gets a little bit heavier and it gets a little bit more solid. But if you get a real big book that's really thick and it's got thousands of pages, that's extremely heavy. Now, that is built one layer at a time. Now, in our life, people want the book of knowledge, but they're not building their knowledge one layer at a time. And knowledge is built one layer at a time, one day at a time, 1 year at a time, and so on. And we build that. So every year we get stronger and more effective, providing we're learning and implementing and executing and growing through problems and expanding through challenges. When we do that, we keep learning and learning and learning. We just layer. And now these days, like I talk to some business owners and I'm like, man, you just don't get it. Like you don't get it because they have so much knowledge. The knowledge gap between my knowledge and their gap is here. And I have to drop back down and remember what it was like 10, years ago or 15 years ago when, every day was just an absolute struggle. It felt like I was drowning. So you need to have those tools or those frameworks or principles in the way you operate, because if you don't have that third pillar, it's extremely hard to stay consistent. So energy over effort. Got to manage your energy, because if not, then the only thing you can manage is your effort and you'll eventually burn out. So you want to be managing your energy. That's just one. But there's a whole bunch of other frameworks and stuff that I run off of as well. Like there's a heap of them actually. I got here. I'm running a leadership course next week, so there's a heap of them there.
Oh, fantastic.
Sorry for the short answer.
No, not at all. That was a great answer, and I think the guest will certainly be able to relate to what you've shared through these 3 steps that can really be a powerful tool for change. And you did touch on consistency. So, you could be applying all these things, but if you're doing it here and there and it's not consistent, you're not going to achieve long-term results. So what do you see as the key to upholding the consistency, the habits, and the strategies so that you're actually getting somewhere with it? Yeah.
So again, I have another framework that I use all the time with clients, whether it's personally or professionally or in their business. Clarity times by standards plus environment equals your success or equals your fulfillment or equals the results you want. So if we just go back to the start of the framework, it's clarity. Clarity comes before standards. If you don't have clarity, standards drop. So if someone wants to improve their standards, which might be that they're more consistent, it might be that they are more courageous. If you don't have clarity around why that's important, it's hard to uphold that. Before this interview, like I've been working since like 7 o'clock this morning back to back. It's now like 7 o'clock at night here. So, it's been a 12-hour day already, and I got heaps more work to do. Now, some days I work from like 4 a.m. until, 8 or 9 o'clock. And then other days like are a bit more chilled and a bit more cruisy. But I love this stuff, right? So when I go back to like why is that important for me? I have to really think back to like, why do I do this stuff? Because if not, you get caught in your emotions. Now, all emotions are volatile. So what goes up comes back down. What's positive ends up negative, and what's negative then becomes positive again, and we keep going around in circles. So when you have clarity, I just focus back on, why am I doing this? Now, why am I doing it? Because I want to grow a business that helps people perform better, right? It's the mission of the company. Well, the vision of the company is to build businesses that help people perform better. The mission's a lot bigger than that. And there's a lot of parts of that mission, but that's why I do it. The other thing is that I wouldn't do this stuff if I didn't feel like I had some inner calling that allowed me to do what I was highly effective at. Now, I've obviously learned a lot and developed skills like the ability to talk on a podcast like this. I remember the day I recorded my first video for YouTube. I recorded it and I actually put it off for about 4 or 5 days. I kept thinking, I'll do it tomorrow. And then I'd go watch TV. I'd go have a coffee. Then I'd go for a walk. Then I'd come back and I'd watch some more TV. And I put it off for like a couple of days. Then I came back, I recorded the video. I watched it and I was like, this is crap. And I deleted it. That happened for like a week, right? Like it was a couple of days where I just kept recording stuff and then deleting it because I hated it. And then eventually I thought, you know what? One of the principles I have is you always have to start shit first. And I don't mean start shit as in start the object. I mean, you are going to be shit when you start. So when you know that you're going to be shit, then you don't put these high standards on yourself and pressure like most people do, where they're like, I've got to be good. If you look at me on a podcast, we're talking about this, in my podcast, I do a podcast 5 days a week, Monday to Friday, most weeks, not all.
Insane.
All the time. But then I do 3 guest podcasts or 2 guest podcasts minimum every week. And I have been doing this for a long time. So I'm probably like 250 podcasts in with other people. Do I think that I'm amazing at them? No. I just try to work on one thing every podcast and get a little bit better at it, just like people should do. But if you look at that and you go, wow, I should be like his level, then that self-comparative, you're gonna crush yourself in it. You're better off just starting and being shit and realizing that your first podcast, no one cares and no one listens. And your mum and dad or whoever in your family are probably going to tell you that it was great, even if it sucked. But by the time you actually get good, like this year, I'm doing a tour in the US and I'm working with some big names over there and things like that. By the time you get that opportunity, you have developed those skill sets that allow you to be there because you've earned the right. I've seen people who've taken shortcuts and gotten on those big stages, and the problem is their communication skills are crap. They don't know what they're talking about. They don't have frameworks, so they essentially copy other people's material, and then they get caught out, and then they get ridiculed and, judged and criticized, and then eventually they just fall off the face of the planet and you don't see them again. So even though it sucks that it's taken me years of doing this stuff to get where I am, the thing is that consistency and the reasoning behind the consistency, so having a real clear mission and vision and that purpose, that why behind why you do what you do, helps you to create that consistency. And then that consistency over time is that layer of paper, one layer at a time, until you become so good at something that by the time you are noticed for being good at it, you do really, really well. I hope that answers the question anyway.
It certainly does. That's such a good answer. And so you also talk about emotions, because everyone goes through challenges, everyone goes through experiences that aren't the best, that probably they might feel a bit depressed or unhappy about. And one key to success and even performance, performing better is being able to manage your emotions effectively. So do you have a framework or a set of principles that you guide people or your customers through to be able to better manage themselves emotionally?
Yeah. There's not so much one framework. There's a bunch of different frameworks that I've learned over the years. So like breath work is a big thing at the moment, right? Like coaching industry, like I've been in the industry for so long now that you see there's these fads. And like, I remember I first heard about Wim Hof and ice baths like 10 years ago, I think, when something happened and it was like one of his first YouTube videos. And my friend said to me, you heard of this guy called the Iceman? I was like, never heard of him. And he showed me. I remember watching it at dinner, and I got home and I was watching it, and he hadn't even launched his like online subscription platform yet. That came like a year or so later. And I was watching this guy and I was like, man, that's cool. So I started having cold showers. That was like 10 years ago, and I started doing his breath work. And then I watched it, like it slowly started and the movement grew and the movement grew and the movement grew. And now it's like every coach on the planet's like, got to have an ice bath, got to have an ice bath. And even people who aren't coaches are like, man, ice baths.
I'm seeing it all over Instagram.
Yeah, but it's a fad, right? I mean, that's been there for a long, long time. It's just that people get hold of it. The same as breath work. Like, breath work's been around for thousands of years, but it's like, it's this new thing. And then everyone comes out with their new bullshit methodology is like, yeah, but you have to breathe like through one nostril and then you got to like push your ear back and then do it this way. Cause it's like, they all try to find their unique spin on some bullshit. That happens all the time in the coaching industry. And then eventually it dies out and then there's the next thing. And then it dies out and then there's the next thing. So what was your question again? I just had a complete mental blank and I think I went way off track.
Oh, it's all good. So
framework around
just going back to emotions.
So with emotions, we have to understand that what emotions are, right? Now, if you look at the research around what an emotion is, there is so much conflicting evidence. Now, here's the crazy thing. Science doesn't even know. If you look at the literature, science actually doesn't even know what an emotion is. They know that we have them, but it can't clearly define what an emotion is because there's too much debate around what it is. So that's pretty crazy considering that people can be diagnosed with emotional disorders, such as depression, anxiety, things like that as well. So, or mood disorders. So I won't bury down that rabbit hole. But anyway, emotions are up for debate. But when I did a lot of research, what I found was that there seemed to be a causal chain. And I talk a lot about this I run an event called Thrive Time. And that's the event where we help you build your success map. But when we go into the emotional stuff and the mental stuff, there was a causal chain that took me about 6 years of study to try to figure out what it was. Now, essentially what happens is if we go to birth, you have an egg and you have sperm. When they come together, you're essentially taking the genes of the father and the genes of the mother and combining them, both of them, in order to make the genes of yourself, right? Now, in that process, there's something called epigenetic tagging. That epigenetic tagging has a lot to do with our parents' mental and emotional states and the challenges that they're having in their life at the time of conception. So our parents essentially gift us with a life journey of problems. Now, remember how I said that evolution is essentially solving one problem and creating another problem. So we never get rid of our problems, although the delusion that humans have is that we're going to get rid of problems. So business owners who are the most stressed think that they're going to get rid of problems, right? And they think that if they can just solve all these problems, then life gets easier, and it doesn't. The problems just get bigger. My financial problems now are way bigger than my financial problems when I first started, because now my tax bill has a lot of zeros on the end of it, whereas when I first started, my tax bill was nothing. And no one sues a broke person. And now with more staff, there needs to be more management. There needs to be more systems, more processes, more infrastructure. That causes problems. So, and I was talking to a business owner about this tonight, and I'll come back to the emotional imbalance stuff.
Sure.
I said, you've got to be clear about the problem that you're solving in your business, because if you're a business owner and you're trying to solve cash flow, it means you need to get sales. When you get sales to solve the cash flow problem, it creates a delivery problem. So if the example of this is like, if I'm selling hats, if I sell 10,000 hats, now I need to deliver 10,000 hats. So I need to now go to China, get these 10,000 hats, get them put on a boat over here. Now, if I've already paid for the hats, there's a massive problem with cash flow because I'm waiting for 10,000 caps to land before I sell them. So I've got a huge cash flow problem. So now I've sold these 10,000 caps. I've got to wait for them to get here. Customers start complaining. Now I've got customer service problems because they're waiting. The boat's been held up for an extra 2 months. They're at customs. Then from there, I get them and I go, shit. 1 out of every 10 caps, so 10% of them are faulty. Shit. Now I got to send a bunch back to China. I've got to get them to send these other ones back across. So now these other customers have... But here's the thing, we've sold them. So now we've actually solved the cash flow problem, but now we've got customer problems. All that happens is in business and in life, we just keep revolving around in problems. Now, if we do a good job, there's something called a noosphere that Vygotsky spoke about, the philosopher. And what he said is that we go through these spheres of growth. Where you're at right now in your life, this is anyone listening to this. When you're going through any challenge in life, you're stuck at a level. And those levels are like school. In grade 1, you're like, oh, cool, it's fun. You're in grade 1 now. You're a bit bigger than reception. And you're like, yeah, cool. This is good. It starts off easy. Everything's great. You start learning some stuff. You mess around a little bit. You might do some homework. You might not, if you're like me, get in trouble a little bit. And then one day the teacher comes in after a whole year's worth of work, or it might even be a whole term. And they hit the big T word and they go, we've got a test. And you're like, shit, not a test. And then you get all stressed out. You start worrying. You're like, crap, I can't remember half this stuff. I better study. You've got to cram. It forces you to grow. It's uncomfortable. It sucks. You're afraid. What if I fail? All of these things come up. It's like the most uncomfortable time. Then you go through the test. And after the test, you're like, well, I've either failed or I haven't. Let's see. Now you get your results back. Cool. I passed. And then you go back to that same journey again where you learn, you grab a whole bunch of skills, and then a test happens, and then you get fear, worry, stress, concern. There's all these challenges, and you've got to then grab all the knowledge that you've got from the past learning experiences, piece them together in order to pass a test. That's the exact metaphor for life. And so when all these business owners come to me and all these people come to me and they're like, yeah, but I'm so stressed out because of all these things. I'm like, yeah, but you're just going through a test. Here's the thing. If you fail the test, what happens? You repeat the grade. Now, if you've been stuck in life for 10 years or you've been stuck financially, it already tells me everything that I need to know about you as a person. It tells me that every time you come up against a test, you run away from it, you're scared, or you're not learning fast enough in order to break through. That's why you're stuck. So there's only a couple of options. You stay where you are right now and you can just keep repeating grade 2, or you go to grade 3. But in order to go to grade 3, you've got to have all the stress, all the pressure, all the learnings. You've got to integrate all your thinking. You have all the doubt, all the fears, everything like that. And then you have this huge breakthrough. And then after the breakthrough, you have something called an identity crisis. I was the first person on the planet. I did a whole bunch of research on this. I'm the first person on the planet to realize that when you have a breakthrough, you have an identity crisis. And so you start questioning yourself about everything again. You're like, I don't even know what I want to do anymore. I don't even know if I'm going in the right direction. Is this for me? I don't know whether I want to be married. I don't know whether maybe my relationship's not working. I don't know. Should I quit my job? Should I not quit my job? Am I making enough money? Do I really want to be here? I don't know whether, like, what about my kids? All of those what ifs and all of the questions start resurfacing again. And what it does is you've got to reconfirm you as an individual and where you're going. Should you reconfirm it again? Hence the need for a success map like I teach. Once you break through, all of a sudden you're like, cool, now I got clarity again, bang, and now I'm off. You're learning, you're having this experience, life becomes fun again, you enjoy everything. And then after a period of time, depends on how fast you're growing, you sit there again, you're like, shit, everything's getting tough. There's all these challenges, there's all these fucking problems. I don't know why I'm having to deal with all this shit. And man, this is tough. Now we're getting the next challenge again. Are we going from grade 3 to grade 4? Do you know the beauty is at grade 1, you get grade 1 problems, you get grade 1 challenges, you get grade 1 lessons, but you also get grade 1 rewards. People want grade 12 rewards, but they don't want grade 12 challenges. So when someone comes to me, like I had a business owner who's a big developer, and I went to his office because he hired me and he called me down. He's like, right, I need your help. I've worked with him for years. And he said, mate, I'm getting sued. This guy's suing me for like $3 million. And I was like, okay. And he goes, fuck him, fuck that, and he's going off his face. And I said, like, let's go for a walk. So we went for a walk, right? And as we're walking, the whole time he's complaining, this is bullshit. I told staff this. And I said, hey, stop. Now, this guy was homeless. When he was 16, he was living on the street. And he speaks about part of his journey of having to use a toilet block to wash himself. He would go into a public toilet block and wash under his arms and his groin and stuff like that because he was sleeping on the street because his parents were abusive and he left home. Yeah. And I said, can you remember if you go back to that time in your own head and you think about living on the street, if I told you back then that someone was going to sue you for $3 million, what would you think? And I watched him stop and it clicked. And he said, well, first of all, I would have thought that you were full of shit. And I said, I know. And I said, the other thing is, does anyone sue a broke person? So is someone suing you because you don't have $3 million? Or are they suing you because they know you got heaps of money? And he stopped and he smiled and he's like, of course they're suing me because I have heaps of money. And he goes, and I said to him, that's my point. You've got shit tons of money. Just be fucking grateful. Because the only reason why you're in this position is because of the level of the game that you're playing. So appreciate the level and appreciate the game. And he smiled and he said, thank you. So my point is that you are rewarded proportionally to the level that you're playing the game at. If you think that you're going to get to level 12 when you can't even handle the stress at level 1 or level 2, then you're never going to get there. Now, some people skip grades. So if for instance, if you inherited $1 million off of parents who don't develop your skills to manage your finances and don't understand the pressures of however they've developed the money. So let's say that they have a big business. Let's say the business has $100 million in revenue, or $100 million, it's worth $100 million. They die, business gets sold off, that $100 million lands in your bank account. Yet at the same time, mummy and daddy have protected you from having to deal with financial pressure and financial stress. And every time you got yourself in trouble, they get you out of it. And they babysit you like the little baby that you are. Then all of a sudden, now you've got $100 million. That's like walking into the gym and seeing someone lift 200 kilos on a squat and just getting under the bar and going, I reckon I can lift that. And you pick it up and all of a sudden, bang, now your spine's crushed, your legs are broken, everything like that. You just got absolutely destroyed. You want to watch parents destroy their kids? Watch them give away their inheritance and never train them on how to look after their finances or how to manage their money. So you want to make sure that you're bringing your kids up to the level of the game that you're playing. Now, if you have a look at great people who have done that well, Gina Reinhart in Australia, people say, oh, she inherited billions of dollars. She inherited whatever it was, like I can't remember, but let's say it's $3 billion. She inherited it with $3 billion and ended up growing it to become the richest woman on the planet at one stage. I think she's the richest self-made woman on the planet, because there are a lot of people who have inherited money and then just given it all away or lost it. But she essentially got that money and then became self-made because she made way more than what her dad ever did, way more. James Packer's the same. You know, Kerry Packer's son. He inherited a heap of money. He's still a billionaire. He's kept all the money. The Murdochs, they've got a lot of money. There are a lot of people out there who have done a great job at training their kids to be able to handle that amount of stress and pressure. Because that child, if they're at a level 300 financially, that kid better be at a level 300. They better be able to handle level 300 problems, or if not, it's going to destroy them. So coming back to the imbalances, like how do you handle your emotions and things like that, there's a whole bunch of different tools. So first of all, different levels require different tools. So one of the key things that I teach people straight away is whatever you're focusing on is whatever you're going to consistently bring into your life. Now, a lot of speakers have, right, I enjoy it. Like this here now isn't work. This here is just me having fun and playing games. Right? So how cool is that? So when you set your life up now I wasn't there. It took me a long, long time to realize this. I actually only learned it about 12 months ago because our business had grown. We got to a level, I had a bunch of staffing problems, and then I got in the habit of complaining every day. So I'd wake up, oh, this is broken, this is fucked, got to deal with staff, this is bullshit. And I just got into that negative state. And every morning I would wake up, I would think about that. Every night when I go to bed, I'd think about that. And then what I realized was that I was focusing on the things that I didn't want, which is why I kept getting more of what I didn't want. The moment that I put my feet on the floor and realized in the morning, I remember the day I woke up, I rolled over and I was thinking, this is bullshit. Like, I'm sick of being stuck. Put my feet on the carpet and I rubbed my feet on the carpet. Now, myself and my wife we bought this beautiful house a couple of years ago, and she did this big renovation, like this room here. We bought this house that was built in the 80s. It's a nice house on the lake here in Adelaide. And the house, when we bought it, was still in the 1980s. It had like green carpet and stuff. My wife did a full reno in 6 weeks, put in the bookshelf, everything like that, because of this is what I love. So I put my feet on the carpet. It's this nice soft carpet. And I felt the carpet and something inside my head clicked in that moment. And I was like, I'm in the house that I dreamt about as a kid. That's fucking cool. And then I looked across and there's my wife lying there asleep, like half with her mouth open and drool coming out. Yeah. And I'm like, she's been with me through thick and thin, through some of the toughest situations financially, in business. She was with me when I had nothing. I left the personal training industry and went into the personal development industry, and I ended up with nothing. And I was making really good money in that industry, but I left because I knew that that's what I was pulled to do, and that's where I felt I needed to be. So I left that industry, and everyone said that I was stupid and crazy. But she stayed with me. And so I looked at her and I was like, man, I have the most amazing person in my life. And I was like, where did I go so wrong by waking up and stressing and worrying about all these things that don't matter? When I could just, like, my feet on this carpet, my feet feel good. I'm looking at her, life's good. Yet I'm stressed about all this other shit. And that was the moment I realized the importance of making sure that your focus is where you want it to be. And when I say where you want it to be, you need to go to the future on the visions and the missions. And so before I go to bed every night, I focus on the future and feeling and living it. So I have to have the feeling. And then in the morning when I wake up, I will not get out of bed until I've felt my future. When I feel my future again, I get out of bed and I start my day because I already know that that's the direction that I'm working towards. So that there alone is just one tool. Then there's a bunch of mental and emotional balancing tools that I use as well. So what I realized many years ago, and this is how I came across Dr. John Demartini, I was doing a speaking gig in Mexico with him in a leadership retreat. And I was telling him about this mental and emotional balancing tool that I was trying to create because I was studying yin yang philosophy from ancient Chinese philosophy. And I said, I believe that the brain is yin and yang. It has to balance itself back out because if you look at everything in nature, it has to stay, it goes back to its most stable form. And he said, how are you going with it? And I told him, I'm stuck on the science behind it. The philosophy's there, but the science isn't. And he said, come and do my event. So I jumped in, I started learning from him. And he became a mentor and then he became a close friend. And now some of my work is in some of his work. So he references my work as I reference his. And so one of the tools that I teach is how to create mental and emotional stability because nothing can grow unless it's stable. Like you can build a house, but eventually it's going to fall down if it's unstable. You've got to build that foundation. And even if we look at physics and chemistry, everything in physics is going back to its most stable format as far as we can gather. And in chemistry as well, if you look at the outer shell of electrons, and I won't get too sciencey, but essentially they have to stabilize. That's how you have compounds are created and so on. I won't get too much into it. But essentially, if you have outer shell electrons that are missing, it grabs something else in order to create more stability in that outer shell. If not, it becomes highly volatile or it can break down. So that's what made me try to figure that out. But they're just some of the key principles around keeping mentally and emotionally balanced. But there's a time and a place for everything. Like if I need absolute drive, I'm going to use negative emotions. And part of the issue that I have with a lot of my industry, the personal development industry, the psychology industry, the psychiatry industry, social sciences, is all these people preach this positive shit of like, you've got to be positive all the time. You've got to be happy. You don't. Confucius said that the chasing of happiness or the seeking of happiness is what creates unhappiness. And so when we're unhappy, we want more happiness. But when we're happy, we fear unhappiness again. It creates these volatile cycles inside of our own mind. Confucius said that like thousands of years ago. But people listen to these other idiots who sell an idea or a concept that's never been proven to be true. And there are times that I have positive thinking or empowering thinking. There are times that are disempowering. If you're positive all the time, what happens when you get yourself, like people get themselves into bad situations because they don't think about that what could go wrong, the disadvantages, what they could lose if they do what they do. We want to look at that. Like when I'm making a business decision, my team comes to me. I'm not optimistic. They go, oh, I think this will work. And I go, oh yeah, great. It'll work. Awesome. I just lost $20,000. That's fucking stupid. So what I do is I sit there and I go, okay, cool. What could go wrong? What are all the problems? And we look at all the negatives. And then from there, we look at the positives as well. And we balance it out and we make an intelligent executive decision. You can't do that if you're out of balance. So people who are always positive and always optimistic tend to make stupid decisions. People who are negative avoid making decisions because they always think that it's going to turn out the worst. Now, there's a time and a place for negative thinking. Sometimes if I'm at the gym and I can't be bothered, I'm like, get in there, stop being a fat shit. And I'll give myself a bit of slack. And it creates that adrenaline and that pain. I'm like, right, I'm going in the gym. And now I've just got motivated. And then when I'm in there, I'm like, hey, oh yeah, let's train. And all of a sudden I can switch my thinking. I think that the key to greatness is being able to use your thinking to maneuver in a direction that you're trying to grow into. So use your negative thinking, use your positive thinking, and then balance shit out. Right? But if you stay stuck in positive for too long, problem. Stuck in negative for too long, problem. If you're neutral for too long, problem. Right? Because if you're neutral and you're balanced too much, you lose all your drive and ambition. But what it does is it creates a groundedness. So if you're overthinking stuff all the time, you want to be more grounded. But then you want to use your mission and your success map to drive you. But after a while, you'll either become positive in your thinking or negative in your thinking, depending on the results you're getting. And so then you've got to go back and balance it out. So you need the right tools to get you to where you want to get to, right? It's the same as a car. People who are stupid put their foot on the accelerator, gas it, and then when the first corner comes up, they just keep their foot on the gas thinking that they're getting somewhere fast, and they just run off the track and crash the car. They're most of the like hyperactive people I work with. They come to me, they're like, man, I'm like growing my business and like, I'm trying to push staff and staff can't keep up and like they're all fucking useless. And I'm like, let me guess, you keep crashing. How do you know? Maybe you need to slow down, my friend, and use the brake. Nah, man, like we've got to grow. We've got to go. Then just keep using the accelerator. See how you go. And then there's the other people who sit on the start line, their foot's on the brake, and everyone else just keeps driving past and they're like, why do I keep losing? But they're most comfortable sitting still doing nothing because it's safe. Or they think that it's safe, but everyone else keeps passing them by. To be a good, effective racer in life, you need to know how to accelerate. You need to know how to brake. You need to know how to put your foot flat, and you need to know when to keep the accelerator on, but just sort of slowly feather it, right? Because you can still accelerate, but you might have to accelerate a little bit slower. You're still getting somewhere, but there's a time where you just need to accelerate slowly and just chip away at things. And then there's other times where you get on that straight again and everything's clear and you just put your foot down and you gun it. But then as you come up to the first corner, you've got to hard brake, slow everything down. And then you turn into the corner, you see the direction that you want to go in, and you're like, right, accelerate again. So good drivers, good business owners, good business leaders, good leaders in their family, good people with influence, and even just the general public, they need to know how to use their own mind the same as a car. You need to know when to slow down, when to speed up, when to brake, when to accelerate. And sometimes you want to just put your foot flat to the floor, but the conditions don't say that it's right to put your foot flat to the floor. Like if you're in rain and it's raining heavily and you don't have the right tires on, doing that is a silly idea because you're going to crash. People do that in life. They're in bad economic environment and they're like, nah, we want to grow, when what they should be doing is consolidating and slowing down. And so they crash. But life's like that as well. We go through times of growth, time for consolidation, time for shedding away some of the things that don't help us or give us an advantage anymore. And then we just keep moving. So like you'll know as you go through your own growth stages, sometimes you lose friends. Sometimes you lose communication with family. We have to lose things in order to gain things in life as well. And so part of your own growth and part of business growth as well is that you grow, you consolidate, you shed, and then you grow into the next stage. And that's just a cycle of growth. If you have a look at nature, that happens all the time.
You talk about performance, and we've obviously talked about winning, but how do you, you work your ass off. Like you are just, but you go, but you also have balance. Like you always bring it back to balance. So you have that yin yang mindset. But how do people keep that energy? How do entrepreneurs like myself, people who are still trying to establish their business and grow and advance, like how do you keep that energy consistent?
Yeah, there's a few different things that I can give for that question, and I could probably go on for hours on that one question alone. But like, I remember a quote years ago, and someone said the only way you know where a boundary is when you cross it. You only know your own boundaries when you cross those boundaries. So a lot of people in this day and age worry way too much about balance. And they're like, I meet these business owners and they're like, oh man, I want more balance. I want more work-life balance. And I'm like, I don't even know what that means. And they're like, well, I just want more work-life balance. And they use it because society's conditioned them for this silly idea that they've never even thought about. Now, our idea of balance really comes down to our values. And this is why having a clear success map is important. Now, when I look at my life, my highest value is teaching, coaching, and learning. So I spend most of my day teaching, coaching people, and learning. That I do more than the average person. So on an average day, I could spend 10 to 15 hours teaching, coaching, and learning. Today, that's all I've done, right? I haven't even hit my gym session yet. But that's a lower value. So I've been in meetings since this morning with clients. I then had meetings with my team. I then had meetings with people overseas. I then work with a coach that I'm working with. And then I've had, other clients this afternoon. Like I've hardly stopped. But that's my balance because it's my highest value. My second highest value is high-level leadership and communication. So I like being around people who are driven and want to grow and who are also leaders in their own right. I like hanging around parents who lead their kids. I like hanging out with other business owners who want to lead a team of people. I want to hang around, like even my team. I have my own leaders in my own team, right? So my wife is the head of operations in the company. I love spending time with her because she's a growth-driven leader. So I like hanging around those types of people. Guess what? The thing is I learn from them, but also most of my clients are those types of people. So not only do I teach, coach, and learn from those people, I also get paid to teach, coach, and learn those types of people. So now I have this big cycle of I learn, I coach, and even when I make money, I still learn, teach, and coach. So I get to do what I love. Then I go down to my third highest value, which is business and wealth creation. So I keep building this business bigger and bigger every year, and we keep making more and more money. And the more money we make, the more I get to teach, coach, and learn. The more I connect with high-level leaders and bring them into our community and help them as well, because they need the tools that I have to become better leaders and better business owners and more effective in their family. So the money then becomes an amplifier of the stuff that I'm already doing. Money essentially is an amplifier. Like if you're living a shit life and you have money, your life is just going to create more of a shit life, and all of your habits will show that and demonstrate it. That's why if you don't change you never change your life. But people try to change their life and think that it's going to change the way that they feel, and it never does. So that's my third highest value. And then my fourth highest value is physical appearance and physical fitness. So I like going to the gym, I like exercising, I like training. And so I just set my life up around my 4 values. And it took me a while to do that. But these days, I very rarely go outside of it. Like someone will come to me and they go, we need you to do X, Y, and Z. And I go, I'm not doing that. And they go, well, you have to. And I'm like, nah, you're mistaking me. I'm definitely not. That's not how I operate. And sometimes I have unrealistic clients. I sometimes pick up a client who is just unrealistic and they want me to be something that I'm not. And I just go, look, here's your money back. I'm not your guy. Go somewhere else. Now they lose out on working with one of the best coaches in the world because they're unadaptable and they don't accept me for being me. That's silly. Now, if you're any type of leader, if you don't accept people for the way that they are and then work on growing their skill sets, which make them more of themselves, then you're setting yourself up for failure because you can't turn a lion into a fish. But most people, they hire a person and then try to turn them into something they're not, instead of looking at their skills and saying, where are they consistent? Where are they effective? You know, what makes them them? And then working on developing those skill sets and pushing them up and putting them in the right roles. Or if not, letting them go and letting them go to a business where they're going to be appreciated and valued for the skills that they have. Right. So these are things that keep people non-effective. I can't even remember what the question is because I just sort of stole it and went crazy.
So good. So good. It was all about your energy and energy balance and
balance.
Yeah. But I think you've answered it quite well.
So just coming back to it, because I want to round off the question for you. I hate to leave people just hanging. When it comes to that, your lifestyle balance, there is no such thing as work-life balance. Like if you have a low value on career or a low value on work or a low value on business, the fuck makes you think that you want to work? So your work-life balance is going to be crap. Now you can work an 8-hour day, but if you have a low value on work or career or something like that, or something that's going to expand you within that career, you're probably going to be working an 8-hour day if you need money to pay bills. And during that 8-hour day, you're probably going to do about 3 hours worth of work, and you're going to spend most of your day avoiding working because it's not what you want to do. And unfortunately, there are plenty of government departments. There are plenty of councils who get free money. Now, anytime that people get given money without doing something, so giving something for nothing, they'll waste it. And so when a government wastes money and they go, oh, we don't have enough money, what do? They just raise taxes. Nothing off their skin. They don't give a shit. So then we give them more money and then they just go and waste it again because there's no accountability on their behalf. But then what they can do is they can give that to other non-productive members. So everybody knows that there are plenty of people in the council or council workers, not all of them, some of them are very good, but most of them get frustrated because they want to work and they want to be productive, but they're around people who get paid really, really well to do nothing. So essentially they're being rewarded. And I watch them. I watch dudes who are around the council area. I'll walk past and I go for a walk, an hour later, they're still sitting in their truck just on their phones. And I'm like, hang on, the lawnmower's on the back. What's going on here, lads? People go, yeah, but they're probably taking their lunch break. Believe me, they ain't taking their lunch break. That's a common pattern of behavior. Because if you're driven, your lunch break is like 10 minutes. Or you work at your desk while you're still working if you're driven. So what my point is that even your values dictate what you call work-life balance. Part of the reason why I outperform most people in our society, both financially and in business and things like that, isn't because there's some secret skill. It's just because I live my values. I like working. And so if the average person, let's take someone, for instance, who works an 8-hour day, if they are 8 hours productive, but I love working. So like, as I said, I'm doing 7 until 8. So 7 a.m. till 8 p.m. tonight. Actually, I'm going to work after this anyway. So I'll probably work till 10 or 10:30. If we look at that day, now, if I do that every week, let's say the average working week is 38 hours. Let's round it up to 40. If I work 80 hours, and I'm more productive and I'm more effective and I'm more efficient because I'm more engaged in what I do, my productivity isn't just double because I'm working double the amount of time. I might create 6 or 7 times the amount of produce at the end of that week because I'm just more effective. So if you add that up over a 10-year period, they might be 40 years behind where I'm at. Right now, they're not 40 years behind in actual years, but they're 40 years behind in work. And that's why a lot of people lose the game and they're non-productive. So what we want to have a look at, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that you have to realize that part of the reason why I drive a McLaren is because of my values. It's not because it makes you less valuable. It's just because my life and my lifestyle is tailored in a way that makes me love work and push really, really hard to grow a business and things like that. But that doesn't take away from the fact that someone who has a high value of family, they're probably the most amazing mum and amazing dad, which I probably would not be if I had kids. I would not be as good as what they are. My sister is an amazing mum. Her family's her highest value. She is one of the most epic human beings when it comes to managing kids. And the way that when the kids get upset, the way that she deals with them both firmly but fairly is phenomenal. Whereas I watch my brother-in-law, he gets upset quick. Now, he's got a higher value on experiences and travel and hanging out with his friends and and socializing and things like that. So when the kids get upset, he has a very short patience, right? Whereas my sister, she's very patient with them and she just knows how to communicate. Now, she's never done communication training for kids, but she just gets it. Now, she's a way better mum than someone who has a low value of kids, right? That doesn't mean that they can't be a mum. It's just that they're going to be different. Now, their balance is going to be different. My sister wants to spend as much time with her family and her kids as she can. Now, she also has a high value of career. So she will spend as much time as she can with the kids, and she's super productive and present with them. But when she's working, she's a machine. And then she goes home, and so that's her lifestyle balance.
Yeah.
Not the same as my lifestyle balance, not the same as your lifestyle balance, not the same as my mum has a completely different lifestyle balance to that as well, and so does my dad. So lifestyle balance is a way that works for you. Then we have mental and emotional balance as well. And this is why that success map is so important. Because without that, you don't know what your actual balance looks like, and you'll probably burn out, you'll be stressed out, you'll be frustrated, you'll be overwhelmed, right? And all of those things, those negative emotions and experiences that you're having are essentially a red light on your dashboard telling you that there's something wrong. And the worst thing that happens is now people go to the doctors, they get medicated and all that stuff to shut that shit down. But that's like getting a bit of sticky tape and putting it across the red light on your dashboard to tell you that you got low oil. The emotion's there for a reason to say, hey, there's something going on here. That has to shift. We've got to do something differently. We've got to change. So what we want to do, and I think I got onto this before, actually, I got off track. But our thought processes, I went into genetics. When a child is born, and I'll swing it all back and I'll wrap it up for you.
Perfect.
When we're born, the sperm and the egg, when they come together, are essentially exchanging information. The only thing that evolves through the universe, according to physics at this current time, is energy. Is information. And even energy contains information. So light contains information. So information is the thing that evolves. Now, if we look at the passing on of genes as passing on information, our parents are essentially passing on information about the environment and also about themselves. They're passing on all these bits of information about what are my fears, what am I scared of, what am I worried about. And so there is a lot of, if you look at evolutionary psychology, you'll see that there's this idea or this theory, and I guess it's a scientific theory as well, where we're a lot more genetically like our parents or our grandparents than what we think. And so, yes, we can grow and we can evolve, but our genetics heavily influence us. They influence our psychology, they influence our fears, they influence our worry, they influence our anxiety, they influence a whole bunch of things. So then when we're born into the world, we come into the world with these perceptions that have already been gifted to us from our parents and their own imbalances. Now, what I don't want is I don't want you to look at your parents and go, oh, you fucked me up, because they didn't. They just gave you the information. They were given the same thing, and they've been working hard their whole entire life to try to better themselves than what their parents were. And your job is to do the same so that you're in a better spot for your kids. And then your kids will do the same thing. So that's called evolution. No one's fucked up. It's just that's part of evolution. That's the game. So now, when we come out into the world, our eyes, our smell, our touch, our hearing, everything like that becomes aware of this external world, this external reality. which then we have to navigate. When we take in that information, it goes into our brain, and our brain creates perceptions or meanings behind what everything means in the outside world. And so when a child is learning what the outside world means, and they're attaching meanings to things. And then from those meanings, they create beliefs and they create stories. So stories are essentially a bunch of beliefs and meanings. So now what happens is in our own psyche, we have these beliefs and meanings and essentially stories that we've partially taken on epigenetically because we're probably going to be more responsive to fear. And if we're more responsive to fear, our perceptions then pick up fear more. Then we go, oh, well, when I go outside, there's people. That scares me. And so now we might have some sort of social anxiety disorder. That's not saying that you actually have social anxiety. It's just saying that you're more receptive to potentially being like that. But our job now is to resolve that and figure that out through our life, right? So now that person lives life. When they have those thought processes and those perceptions, our brain doesn't really do too much. Our nervous system regulates our movement and our flow of movement, but it doesn't actually get us to move. The muscular contraction and things like that cause us to move normally happen through chemical changes in the body first. So when we look at that, our brain essentially says there's something going on outside that I think could put us at threat. That's a perception. Our brain then signals certain things through neuropeptides and neurohormones or neurochemicals, which then change hormones in our body and neuropeptides. That then floods through our cells. Our cells then interact with those chemicals, which then now start to change the way we operate and the way we move. But it also changes the way we feel. So my studies on emotions, essentially emotions are driven from thoughts. So thoughts drive emotions drive behaviors reinforce thoughts and perceptions. And then now we have a chain of causal chain, which keep people looping. Now you will stay in that same pattern of behavior, which then people eventually call your identity, or they will call your persona, and you'll even think that you're that way, which is your personality, how you feel about yourself. So what happens is after a while you say, oh, but I've just got anxiety. You don't got anxiety. That's how you label yourself. That's your personality now. Your personality your identity has become attached to someone with anxiety. But your mask that you wear on the outside might not be that. It might change. That's called our persona. But that's all created from the chemical changes based on our perceptions that we feel through essentially it's our feelings. We feel our emotions, but they're essentially out of balance chemicals. All of them are telling us to change. And so if we change and we evolve beyond that by using our mindset and our thoughts, also by changing our behaviors, and potentially it's hard to change your emotions without either changing the thought or the behaviors, but both of those two things can reinforce the emotion. And I'll give you an example. If I eat shitty food and keep thinking in a negative way, it's probably going to drive anxiety. But if I want to change my anxiety and I change my diet and I change my exercise and I change the way I use my body and I change my thoughts, I'm probably going to eliminate anxiety. Now, will you have times where you're anxious? Yeah. Because it's a warning signal that there's something going on in the external world that's not right. So do I have anxiety just before I get on stage to speak? Yeah, if it's a big group of people and I'm pushing myself all the time. Do I let it define me? Fuck no. I just know that it's there because it makes me hyper aware and hyper focused. Now, if I got on stage and I wasn't hyper aware and hyper focused with that level of anxiety, I know that I'm not dialed in. So I know I'm dialed in by having it. Okay, so anyway, I hope that clarifies the causal chain of emotions, but also as well, it helps to clarify about when we use our emotions through positive, negative, and how we need to navigate the world. Because our job in this world is to take one problem, evolve it and dissolve it, and then move to the next problem. And the same thing happens in our psyche. The same thing happens with our emotions. The same thing happens with our behaviors. And eventually, we want to end life moving that needle as far forward in the evolutionary chain as we can. Now, if you've got kids and you do that, some of your kids will end up with with those negative gaps that you've had. Now, if you're a smart individual who's a smart adult who understands human behavior, you don't want to, like, I meet parents all the time. They say things like, I just don't want my kids to go through what I've been through. That's a really bad way of thinking as a parent. Because what can happen is if you have never dealt with those things properly, you'll become empathetic. And when you become empathetic, you try to save your own kids. And when you save your own kids, you take away their ability to learn through their own pain and their own problems and their own adversities. Wow. So they become weak and codependent. And we're in a society now where parents for generations have tried to take away pain and struggle and sacrifice and shit from their kids. And now people call, there's kids who call words violence. Like if you misgender them, it's violence. Right? I played footy all the time. People are like, you're a girl. And I'm like, yeah, or whatever. Whatever the fuck that means. I don't care. I just kick the ball and keep playing. Like, It doesn't matter. Now, if you misgender somebody, it's violence. That shit is hectic. But that happens from an over-supported generation of kids whose parents tried to protect them. Because the truth is that the parents aren't doing their own mental and emotional work and realizing that part of the thing that have made them a great person, a great individual, is going through those adversities. And so for me, as a child, I got bullied a lot. I had bright red hair and freckles, and I was chubby. Part of the reason why I'm successful now is because I had bright red hair, I had freckles, I was fat, and I was bullied. I wouldn't be where I am today without those bullies. Right now, I got asked on a podcast ages ago. They said, "What would you say if you went back and saw the bullies?" And I said, "Thank you," because the truth is, they made me the man I am today. I can take a lot of adversity and I can take a lot of shit off people because I had to learn how to deal with it at a young age. Now I don't really care what people think of me. I realize that my value comes from within, not from other people. So anyway, that's what happens when you heal from your own past and you learn how to balance that shit out, is that you realize that even if your kids get bullied, there is a lesson and learning in there, and you help them navigate it from the learnings that you have, which then makes them stronger, versus trying to take away the bully from them and trying to protect them and save them, which then makes them weak and codependent. Because the truth is, we're in a world of people who are always going to bully you no matter what you do. And there's always going to be adversity. There's always going to be challenge. There's always going to be some form, unless we all end up with the same skin color, the same look, the same everything, which then there's no uniqueness, there's no individuality. There's always going to be someone who's going to judge us for looking differently or acting differently or speaking differently or something like that. The thing is, do you appreciate that part of yourself? Because if someone says to me these days, you're a whitey, I'm like, yeah, cool. And you notice my skin color, fucking brilliant. I couldn't give a shit. Right. But for some people, that massively triggers them because there's part of themselves that feels like less of an individual because they have different skin color. But that's them. Anyway, I hope that helps. I hope that helps someone out there anyway.
Absolutely. No, you answered the questions incredibly well. And I'm just blown away with what you've shared today. There's a lot of things I've learned that I wasn't aware of, or I didn't understand them to the extent that you've explained them today. So thank you so much, Michael.
My
Appreciate
pleasure.
You giving up your time to be on the Will to Win podcast and share your knowledge, wisdom, and expertise. And before we finish up, feel free to share how people can stay connected with you and find out more about you.
Perfect. People can send their hate mail and death threats too. No, I'm just kidding. Look, if you type in Michael Mojo online, I'm sure my website will come up. So my website is michaelmojo.com. If you go and search for me on any social media platform, if you just look up Michael Mojo, you'll find me on there. My Instagram page, which is where I'm highly active and I spend a lot of time speaking to the community and stuff like that on there, is Michael Mojo _success. So you'll find me on Instagram on Michael Mojo _success. And the other ones as well, I think are just either Michael Mojo or Michael Mojo 00, something like that. You'll find me, like people will find me if they want to find me.
That's it. You just gotta look for the mojo. That's all you need to do.
100%. Look, if you send me a message and then you start getting message about crypto, foreign exchange, or anywhere where you've got to give your credit card details online, it's definitely not me. You've definitely got the wrong page.
The wrong mojo.
Yeah, but the wrong mojo. There's definitely scammers out there who try to make fake pages and stuff like that. But you'll know my page.
Fantastic. Well, that's it. All done and dusted. Thank you, Michael.
Awesome. Most people waste their life, and I just don't want you to be one of them.